Hey, it's Coach Nick Tuminello, and I want to welcome you to Secrets of Back Training. We're here at the Institute of Human Performance in Boca Raton, Florida, to show you our favorite back training exercises that we use at Performance University with our clients and athletes of all levels. We've separated it into 4 chapters. First, we're going to cover vertical pulling exercises. Then we're going to cover horizontal-oriented pulling exercises. Then we're going to cover our hybrid pulling variations. And then we're going to cover some isolation exercises. And then we're going to give you a multitude of coaching tips and anything that we think will help you along the way. To help me demonstrate all the exercise applications, I have 2 very special guests. This is the dynamic duo of fitness training right here. We got my man,
Alex Cambronero.
All right, Alex, what do you do?
I'm a competitive bodybuilder.
And you're just coming off a big win, right?
Yeah, I got a first place in the overall in Costa Rica, Miss Muscle.
Congratulations, my man. And then, who was this lovely lady?
And I'm Maggie Cambronero. I'm a national figure competitor, so I've been competing for about 2 years now.
And how are you related to this guy?
He's my husband.
All right. I told you, the dynamic duo of the bodybuilding world. You guys ready to get to work?
Ready to work.
All right, let's do it. You're talking about vertical pulling without talking about one of the staple exercises that we use at Performance University, and that's push-ups and pull-ups and chin-ups. But you don't need me to teach you about pull-ups and chin-ups. You already know they're good exercises. So I'm not going to focus on the concept of pull-ups and chin-ups. We're going to talk about how we apply them. The goal here is to minimize all these excessive forces at your elbows. So our go-to option for pull-ups and chin-ups is a free-floating handle. The free-floating handle, or the benefit of the free-floating handle, is that it's free-floating. So if you notice that as you kind of do a pull, or even a push-up, your hands want to rotate. So having that free-floating handle minimizes the stress at your elbow joint. So it minimizes the risk of tendonitis and stuff like that. So Maggie, if you don't mind demonstrating a couple options there. So first thing she's going to do is make sure the handles are even, right? And then she's just going to kind of do a few. Now, some people it feels more natural to keep the grip parallel. If she kind of lets things go, she can also go underhand grip. And some people kind of transfer in between the two. Perfect. Good. Take a break for a second. So the beauty of this setup is it's twofold. It allows us the versatility to just go right to chin up, or right to neutral grip, or right to pull up, or to kind of cruise in between the 3. And if you're curious about the setup here, is we're using these Sorinex straps. There's 2 loops with sewing in the middle, and all we do is wrap it around the bar, and then the carabiner goes like that, and that's the setup that you see here. So that's our go-to option for chin-ups and pull-ups. If we're not using the free-floating style handles, our favorite type of bar setup is this type of bar setup here for pull-ups. Why? You notice the angle here? It's kind of set up almost like an M versus a straight type of bar. Now, a straight bar is not just necessarily going to rip your shoulders out of the sockets. Plenty of people have done pull-ups and chin-ups on straight bars for years without issue. But there's one concept in physical therapists called the scapular plane. Scapular plane is somewhere in between here and here. And that's kind of where we tend to function most, and it's also where we're most comfortable. So I like to have our clients and athletes doing pull-ups here because it allows them to maintain that comfortable scapular plane position. So it keeps the shoulder a little more neutral, kind of prevents this kind of stuff, which a lot of people have a problem with from sitting at a desk too much. They're limited there. And it's a little bit more shoulder friendly. So if you don't have the free floating handles, they're easy to come by. This is our other option. Plus, you also have neutral grip, which is also a nice variation as well. So you're going to start seeing these a lot more in some of the squat racks and major gyms. But if you have the option of using this bar setup versus a straight bar setup, this is where we're always going to recommend. So if you are limited to a straight, traditional pull-up, chin-up bar, we're fine with pull-ups, especially if you have good shoulders. But let's talk about chin-ups for a second. I want to talk about an aspect of finding out structure, in each individual structure, and tailoring the chin-up to the individual. And basically we're looking at carrying it. So all I have my athletes and clients do is kind of stand like an anatomy chart. So Alex and I are both going to kind of stand with our hands by our side and then just open up our hands like that. Now, he's obviously a bigger, stronger guy than me, so he's got more lat, more bicep. But what we're focusing on here is this angle. So everybody's got a different carrying angle. So we're looking at the angle between here and here. So see, I'm kind of open here. He's not as open there. So from there, we flex your elbows like you're doing a curl. Right now, Alex is accommodating for these giant monster lats that he's built, so there's a little variation there. So where I'm going to have him grab for his chin up relative to his body structure versus mine is where this position ends us up. So what he's going to do is, when he gets up, you can take a break for a second, is I coach my athlete to stand up on the box, turn, bend their elbows, and then reach up from there. And that's about where their structure dictates to minimize any, again, joint stress while we're doing chin-ups. So if you want to go ahead and just demonstrate a few. So basically act like you're going to do a biceps curl first, and then reach up from there. So he found his natural chin-up grip with perfect. And then that's where we allow our clients and athletes, or at least we coach our clients and athletes to do. So we don't just have everybody grab, and I don't think it's going to kill your elbows just to grab and go. But if you're really concerned with personalizing your programs, and we are, it's these little things that make a big difference. So that's how we kind of help everybody to maximize the way they're built and fit the exercise to their body versus the other way around. One of my favorite, and it's one of the toughest chin-up variations you're going to be able to do, is a sternum chin-up. And you can do this with the other grips as well. It's hard to do with a pull-up though, so it's either a close grip or a chin-up. And all you're trying to do is, instead of getting your chin above the bar, you're going to try to pull yourself as high as you can and touch that bar to the top of your chest. So, get here, and I want to jump, get here, and I want to pull, and try to get myself to the top of my chest. Let me move my hands here because I hit that part of the monkey bar. So we get here, and I want to pull all the way up and come back down. So instead of being here, I want to try to finish. And you got to do a little back extension. That's cool because your lats feet all the way down here to your hips. Up nice and high, and come on down. Those are significantly tougher than a regular chin-up. You might want to cut your numbers in half. If you can do 10 chin-ups, you may only be able to do 5 of those. But work your way up, set to 5, 6, 7, 8. You can do 8 of those suckers for several sets. You're pretty strong. There's other ways to do vertical pulling that you might not think if you don't have a lat pull down bar and you don't have a chin up bar or anything like that. You can use a cable, and even if you do have it, we like this version anyway because it gives us more vertical pulling options, and training options are always good to have in your toolbox. So we call this the motorcycle row. What you do is you can get on a bench, grab a cable. The cable should be, if I'm bent over like this, the cable should be roughly at my shoulder height, somewhere close. Slide back on the bench, so now I have tension on the cable. And I want to keep my back straight just like I would a regular row. And I can pull here. Notice where my arm position is. That would be like a close grip lat pull down or a close grip chin up. Pull up. Or I can go out wide. I'm not going to be as strong here. And there's my wide grip. So just to show you, with this arm, you can either go here, somewhere in between, or you can go all the way out and pull like this. A lot on the core, which is really nice. And I like to use the anchor point. Sure, you can do this freestanding. Let me just get away from the bench for a second. You can do this freestanding as well. But this gives you a little bit extra anchor point. If you don't have it, put that foot back, whether you're here or here. And by putting that foot back, it changes your center of gravity a little bit and enables you to do a little bit heavier weight. Because remember, we're trying to get strong here. And if you're using weight that's so light that you're doing 20, 30 plus reps, you're working more muscle endurance and you're not necessarily going to get stronger. So let's say you're on the go, you don't have a chin-up bar or any sort of chin-up bar, you don't have a lat pull-down bar, and you don't even have a cable column to work with. Maybe you're in a hotel, maybe you work out at home, and you don't have all that big expensive equipment. All you need is a set of these JC bands. Yes, we're here at IHP, and yes, I'm biased, and I'm going to promote the JC bands, but they are our favorite bands at Performance U, the only bands that we use. The reason why we like them is because they have a single anchor point in which you can go single or double, and the transition is like that. So, now that you know what the JC bands can do, here's how you do a vertical pull. If you don't have anything that's built for that, you simply tilt your torso over, keep a good straight back. You don't want to be hunched over like this. Soft knees. And then I can either pull in just like this, or I can spread my elbows wide and pull in just like this. So there's my close grip lat pull. Here's my wide grip lat pull. If you want to split your stance, for whatever reason, maybe you want to work this leg more than the other, you can mix that in there. That's really up to you. The main thing I want you to get here is that you don't have to have a chin-up bar or a lat pull-down bar to do very, very good vertical pulling exercises. Instead of taking the vector there, you bring yourself to the vector, and now the vector's ahead of you, and there you have it. Along with the free weights and body weight and band applications for back training, we love using machines at Performance University. Machines offer some benefits that you can't get from free weights or from bands. That being said, we don't use all machines, and some machines we don't use based on the design of the machine. We don't feel best fits the mechanics of the body, because a lot of times these machines are designed by engineers and they're not designed by trainers. I like a lot of the stuff from Techno Gym. This is actually a machine that I don't really recommend my clients use. Again, I don't think anything's going to make your shoulders explode or put you on the surgery table for a few sets. But here's why I'm not a big fan of this particular machine or machines that are designed like this. And it has to do with the angle that the arm moves relative to how our bodies move. So when you think about a lat pull down, the last thing I want to see people do is this forward action, right? We start putting a lot of pressure on the anterior part of the shoulder, capsule, whatnot. Well, if you look at the angle of this, look what that forces me to do right here. If I want to get that full movement, I really have to do that because I can't keep my elbow under, otherwise it makes me feel like I'm going to get put in a submission hold. So if you stay in this zone, I would say you're all right. But as soon as I want to get that end contraction, I have to get my elbows backwards in order to follow the machine, or the way the machine is dictating the angle. And to me, that doesn't really fit the angle that I'm looking for, which is to keep that elbow underneath my wrist. So it's not that I don't really like this machine or don't recommend it, is that if you're going to use it, I would say don't go into that M range bottom position, because it can be tough on your shoulders, at least in our opinion. Now, if you have one of these free motion machines, you don't see them around as much anymore, but when you're doing your vertical pulling, we love this because it's a 45-degree lat row. Now, I'm facing you, I'm supposed to obviously face that way, but I'm not going to turn my back to you here. You got to be able to see my pretty face the whole time. Staying up tall, pulling in. So we like this simply because the force vector is different here than it is on a traditional lat pull down or a chin up, where it's straight above you. So it changes the angle, changes the muscle activation patterns. But if you don't have that machine, you can use a cable crossover or a cable machine like this. So basically what we're looking for is that kind of 45-degree angle or somewhere in between there. And all Alex is going to do is basically perform almost a lat pull down type movement, but the vector he's coming in from is this way versus straight down. Again, kind of that whole bending the bar concept. And obviously really focusing on his lats. Now, there's one thing I want to address here. Notice how close, you just take a break for a second. Notice how close he is to the machine. His shoulder is directly underneath the cable, or at least he's in line with it. So if I drop the pane of glass in front of the cable, it would go right behind his back. A lot of people I see in the gym are actually too far behind the cable when they do this. So I have to back up from me about 6 inches. Come back this way about 6 inches. A little further. This is how I see a lot of people do this. But when they do this, as they pull, their elbows drop backwards and they start doing this. And it starts putting undue stress on their elbow joint, and you're not going to get your lats as much. You're kind of getting some internal rotation stuff going on with your shoulder. So I always coach not only the pulling action, but get in a little bit closer and make sure your shoulder is directly underneath the cable. So we've got Maggie here. We're going to show you a variation of this 45-degree cable lat pull down. This gets a little bit of your obliques, and also we feel it gets a little bit more of your lat, because remember, your lat is the only muscle in your body that connects your arms, your humerus, all the way down to your pelvis. So it's an important core muscle as well. So we want to get that whole pelvic action going at the same time. So check this out. So Maggie's going to pull one side at a time, and she's not just going to stop here. She's actually going to try to put her elbow on her hip. Then she's going to stretch her arm back out, and then she's going to do the other side. Good, and then return. Let's try a couple more reps on each side. Good, so she's getting a nice stretch as she goes. One more. Excellent. We can take a break for me. So what we're looking at there is, you notice Maggie did a great job of keeping her arm in line with her body. She didn't let this kind of stuff happen. Remember, we don't want that. We want good posture. So she does this. She doesn't do this. Or doesn't bring her arm in. Right here. And because we're using the cable, it's very easy on the shoulders. So let's talk about horizontal pulling variations. We have a multitude that we use here at Performance U, and the reason why we have a wider variety of horizontal pulling than we do with vertical pulling is because we emphasize horizontal pulling a bit more than we do vertical pulling, just because we found that most people are weaker in their middle back muscles and that rear delt area than they are in their lats. Now, if you have smaller lats and you're really trying to make them grow, then you definitely need to do a lot more vertical type pulling. You do a higher volume of the exercises that we showed and other exercises that you may have found that work well for you. But for most people, because we sit a lot and because our form is bad when we do rowing, we find that these little form tweaks or these new variations are really what the doctor ordered for them. So you can't lift weights and not do barbell exercises. These are some of the foundation of our horizontal pulling, our bent over rows. So let me show you a few variations and some tweaks on some classic exercises that we've done to improve the benefits that you get from them. First, underhand grip. I'm not going to spend too much time on this one because if you've been lifting weights, you know what an underhand grip bent over row is. But what we're looking at here, let me turn so you can really see, is what happens at the elbow joint. Right? I don't want to be here. I see a lot of people, it looks like they're doing a bent over bicep curl. Don't do that. The other thing is I see people like this. Look how tall I am. I'm almost doing a shrug. Get down so your torso is almost parallel or pretty close to parallel to the floor. Obviously, it goes without saying that you want a nice back arch, so we're not even going to get into the basic stuff there. So from here, I drag it in to about my belly button, and I'm looking for a 90-degree angle at my elbow. And I want to touch the bar right here, pull it through there for a second, get that contraction and hold, pause for the picture, and come on back down. So pretend when you're doing these rows, to make sure your form is good, pretend you have a photographer shooting you right here. So you have to hold and try to pull it through your belly and then slow eccentric. So that's how we coach our bent over position. Now, if somebody can't do this and they've got this kind of thing going, and no matter what we coach, they can't do it, then fine. We stand them up, we give them cables or bands. Cables are that way, and we do underhand grip just like that, or we use a suspension train. Same thing. Okay. Now let's get to wide grip, one of our favorites. A little bit more mid-back here. When we do the wide grip, we like to use one of these fat bar pads. Same thing we use when we do our Bret Contreras hip thrusts. So we take the pad, we put it on the bar, and then obviously it makes the bar fatter in the middle. The nice thing about that is when I go wide grip, so I'm pulling like this now, wide grip is in order for me to keep good form and touch my chest, it keeps me right in that zone where I want to be. Whereas if I didn't have the pad and I had an extra few inches to go, look at where I'm going to stop. Here's where the bar would be. Here's my chest. There's a few inches there. In order for me to touch that bar to my chest, I have to internally rotate slightly. Remember, it's not a bench press where the weight is pulling me into the stretch. I have to pull myself there. So I have to internally rotate a little bit. That's not something that we like to have involved in the exercises here. So we find that the pad gives our clients that feedback. So when they row, we say pull the pad through your chest, down slow. Come up, pull the pad through your chest, down slow. We find that gets them to concentrate through here, and when the pad is touching there, guess what we know is activated? Middle trap, low trap, rhomboid, all the muscles that are commonly weak that we're trying to target with people. You can't not have those muscles on and do this exercise. It just doesn't happen. So this takes care of a lot of those little details for us. Also, if you've ever heard of what's called a guillotine bench press, normally when somebody does a bench press, they kind of drop the bar right here at nipple level. Well, a guillotine bench press, you drop the bar up at your neck. And whether you think that's a contraindicated exercise or not, that's something that's not a part of this video because this is a back exercise video. But we do like that for our back workout just to change the angle of pull. So we go wide and we say pull the pad up higher on your chest. Pull the pad up higher on your chest. Notice the elbow is not dropping back like this. I'm staying right here the whole time. So the difference is I'm going here, here, just changing up the angles just a little bit. So we gave you 3 of our favorite go-to bent over row options: underhand grip, wide grip with the pad, and then wide grip guillotine style row. T-bar rows, old school back exercise. It's a fantastic exercise that I don't see a lot of strength coaches using these days, and I think that's a mistake because I think it's a fantastic movement and we've had a lot of success with it. Now the setup we have here is using the Sorinex landmine, and we also have the Sorinex handles for T-bar rows. If you don't have a Sorinex landmine, you can find another way to put the barbell in the corner, or if you have a machine at your gym, you can use the T-bar row machine. Now again, this is another one of those staple exercises that you've probably seen before, so I'm not going to spend too much time, but I'll show you a few tweaks as far as how we coach it, maybe get something a little bit new out of it. Because this DVD is not just about showing you a whole bunch of new fancy stuff, it's showing you what we do, what works for us, and what the staples of our workouts are. And sometimes the staples of everybody else's workouts are staples of our workouts as well. So if you see something here that reinforces things you're already doing, great. Here's another coach showing you that what you're doing is good stuff, and you also get some new tweaks along the way. And of course, we bring in lots of new exercises. So if you have the handles, again, the big thing here is that you don't have to be as low as we did with the bent over row. You can be a little bit higher here because the angle of the barbell is different. It's coming at an arcing point. So that's why we like these T-bar rows, is when we're doing the bent over rows, you have to be here. But when you're a little bit higher, when you do T-bar rows, it's a little bit different angle. So, keeping the back straight. Now, if you don't have the handles from Sorinex, here's a cool one-arm version. Split your stance like so, and you want the barbell, so let me face you for a second, you want the barbell kind of running, not dead center, but slightly to the left if you're holding it in your left hand. So I get set up, staggered stance, almost like a wrestler would get in a position, grab right in here, and then I'm going to pull this right in. And where I'm pulling it, the barbell is coming right in here. It's not hurting me, guys, so don't worry about that. Of course, I have my weight here, and I want to use 25-pound plates and stack those up, because the bigger the plate, obviously the less range you have. So when I come in here, I've got full range, got that 90-degree, and by the time that plate hits your chest, you've gotten about as far as you want to go with it. Make sure that you don't round too much. So there's another way we like to do these Sorinex landmine T-bar style rows. I learned this from Bert Soren, and we covered this in our landmine training DVD. Is you start off this way. Weights are out here, grab the barbell here, and now I can pull with a wide elbow. And this is really nice for someone who's overly biceps dominant, because the bicep is kind of limp there, and it's really a wide grip, so you get that rear delt, mid-back. So now you have 3 different options with the T-bar style or a landmine style angle barbell. Inverted rows, another exercise you've probably seen before, but I want to show you a couple little performance use style tweaks that we've put to it. So there's 2 ways we do it. We like to go underhand grip, we like to go overhand grip with a wider type position. Can you go close with an overhand grip? Yes, but we tend to find it's very biceps dominant. So our go-to is underhand grip and wide grip. So first with underhand grip, we want to try to touch the chest, come up and pause, and then back down. Now, here's the big difference between the way we like to do it and the way we see it often coached. Is most people, they say, okay, hips off the ground, straight body, and then come right up. But you see how I'm stopping now? Like that? So what we like to do is have them sit, so now I have some flexion at my hips. And then as I come up, touch, and then back down. And I'm not letting my butt touch. I'm wiggling to show you I'm not resting on the floor. So I come up and come back down. But I'm not using my legs to allow this to happen. You can put your feet up if you want. The whole concept here, what I'm telling you, is we let our hips sag, and as we pull, we extend the hips as well. Very similar, combining like a deadlift type movement, and it gives us this rounding action versus just this straight pulling action, right? One is not necessarily better than the other. We just find that gives us a little bit more of a natural arc movement that we like. So when we're going to go wide grip, we take the fat pad again. Same reason as we did it with the bent over row. Wide grip. Now this one, we're going to be a little bit more strict on keeping the body straight, because we're focusing purely on our horizontal action here. So technically the first one I just showed you, the underhand grip, could go in the hybrid section of this DVD. We thought it fit better here because the versions are very close. So again, this is more, if somebody's bicep dominant, you want to focus on a little bit more mid-back strength. Go wider, hips up, try to touch your chest, pause, come back down, come up, pause, come back down. A couple little tips from the trenches on this one. Most people lose it when they hold. So what we like to coach our clients to do is we like to start with an isometric at the beginning, like maybe 5 seconds, where we say, okay, come up, touch the pad, hold, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, then come down slow, and then hit the reps. And we want to make sure that they touch the pad and pause at the pad. We don't want to make sure that they just hit it and fall, because a lot of times you'll see this, where they bounce and they kind of use momentum to go up there. So really focus on that hold, because that's where those all-important mid-back muscles, low trap, mid-trap, rhomboids, are going to get the most bang for the buck. One of our favorite horizontal pulling variations are using the suspension type trainers. We have our SBT right here, and we also have our good old-fashioned rope. If I had to choose one or the other, I'm going to pick the rope, not because it's cheaper, although it is, but it gets a little bit of that grip, so that way you strengthen your grip along with strengthening your pulling muscles. You don't create a muscle imbalance. Everybody talks about muscle imbalances like front to back or right to left, but what about the muscle imbalance between what your grip can maintain and what your muscles can move? So something to think about. And that's not just for big guys. Some of your older clients and women can help with that as well. So again, I'm not going to spend too much time showing you the basic exercises as a few tweaks. So here's your basic recline row, and obviously you know, walk your feet in if you want to make it tougher, walk your feet back if you want to make it easier. Got that? All right. Now, here's how we like to cue this. Aside from not allowing them to lift their hips up, like I said with the straight bar pull, I like when they let the hips go down, because it gives me a little more of a lat stretch. And then I come up tall, and then come back down. Come up tall, so I get hip extension with that row. So that's the first thing. We don't always ask our people to lock in their hips. Second thing is we just tell them wrist to rib. So that way I have a point that I know. So the wrist is right by their rib. And that way if they start shorting us on reps, going like this, oh, I got 3 more, coach, then I know they're kind of halfway reps. And it's okay to get a few halfway reps if that's what you're trying to bang out. But I always know that marker every time, so I know what my perfect reps are. All right, so there's your rope. Now, if I want to get a little bit more one side dominant, then I can put a little twist in there. I don't mean that figuratively, I mean that actually. Check it out. Twist one way, and back, twist the other way. So now I'm getting one side working just a little harder than the other. All right. So obviously whatever you can do with the rope, you can do with the SBT or any other suspension trainer. So I'm not going to bother showing you the two-handed versions because it's very similar. One-handed version. I personally like to keep this as an anti-rotation exercise. I've seen a lot of people, this looks very smooth. Let me show you on this side. Like a dancer type thing, and that might look cool for a cover of a video or something. But right here, we look at that, you're just giving in. When you keep those shoulders parallel with the floor, keep those hips parallel with the floor. Right now, I have a lot of core work happening to resist this from happening as I do my rowing. If I want to make that even tougher on the core, get a little more bang for your buck, I can lengthen the lever arm. I can reach my arm straight out like this. So as I'm doing the rows, this arm is out. And by doing that, now I have more weight pulling me this way. So that's a little more anti-rotation. The other thing to think about here, like I said, small tweaks on stuff that you've seen, but these small tweaks can go a long way and make for big results. I can adjust my body position relative to the anchor point. So if I start where my shoulder, on this side, is in line with the anchor point, so now coming off my shoulder, the anchor point is here, versus the anchor point more to the center or more to my left shoulder, one of them has me pulling across my body, the other one has me pulling kind of straight in front. So you're changing the force vectors up a little bit. So a few small things to think about. Love the one-arm pulls with the suspension trainers. Wide grip type work is something that we've been talking about a lot with the barbells, but you can also do with the SBT or a suspension trainer. Great again, if you're biceps dominant, takes away that biceps dominance and really focuses on mid-back, where people are commonly weak. So the way we coach it is touch the handles together, pull them apart, end up at 90 degrees at the elbow, hold for a second, slow on the way down, touch them together, pull them apart, pause at the top. So we're looking at this type of movement We don't want this. We don't want this. We don't want any shrugging. Big chest, pull apart, hold for a second, come on back down. All right, you put me on cable rows and I can go nuts, and I'm about to go nuts in front of you now, show you a whole bunch of variations. Some you may have seen, some you may not, or some new tweaks on classic variations that you're currently using. So let's start with the basic horizontal standing pull. Now, the big thing here, aside from the row, is what stance are you in? This is a strength training oriented DVD. We're not talking about doing crazy reps, 50, 60 reps. So in order to get the most weight lifted, and you're going to be strong here, you're pretty strong pulling, is we like to step back the same side foot, so that'll be my left foot if I'm in my left hand. Anchor this foot down, and I try not to use too much body English. If I have somebody who I'm confident can disassociate the lumbar spine from the thoracic, then I may encourage them to give me a little bit of thoracic. Look, lumbar solid, that's lumbar flexion. This, thoracic flexion, a little thoracic, and then add that in there. That can increase a little bit of deadlift work, stability here, mobility here. Plus it's a little bit more function. If you think about it, you're pulling in a rope or something, you're definitely getting that thoracic movement with there. So, we get that involved. Can you mix up stances there? Sure. But the strongest stance that we found, bang, is right here. Now, I'm going to show you with the other hand. We call this the turn away row. If I turn here towards you, so now this is the free side there. It's a little bit more like a rear delt kind of movement. That's doable. So you can go 45 degrees and pull, changing up the force vector. But check this out. If I'm doing a row here and I turn away from it, so now my free hand is away from the cable, and I pull in. You ever see anybody do what they call like an L type position, or a W, excuse me? Well, now we're getting that with a pull. So you can get right in here, you're getting some core stability in there, and then you're pulling it right in. So if you're really into trying to get your clients to kind of get those shoulders back and down, this is a fantastic exercise, a way to do that. And of course, you can load it up with whatever they can tolerate. Now, keep moving here. Lower the cable. This one gets a little bit more low back, a little bit more glute. Step that left foot way back and lean forward. So now I have a straight line from head all the way to ankle, or fairly good back posture. Lock this in, and now I do my row. Careful to keep good form here. I'm getting that 90 degree at my elbow, pulling straight in. Not too high here, because now I'm pulling up. Lean in. You can anchor this in if you want. If not, don't do it. Pull it in. Let me show you the other side so you can see the body position. Right in here. So I hardly have weight on this back foot, and I'm not short stepping. I'm long step, lean forward, vertical tibia, chest up, and pull that sucker right in. Not only will that get your lats and glute on the opposite side, because this lat works with this glute. That's why you throw the way you do. That's why you punch the way you do. So there you have it. There's our favorite cable horizontal rowing variations. The standing with its shoulder level, and of course, low cable. If you don't have a cable, guess what? JC bands work just as well. One of our staple horizontal pulling exercises is the dumbbell bent over row. Notice first that Maddie has 2 feet on the ground. She doesn't have one knee on the bench. If she started with one knee on the bench is the same height, but we're all different heights. We're all different shapes and sizes. So some people, when they put that knee on the bench, they get kind of tilted one way. If they're taller, they're tilted towards the bench. So we don't like to do that. We like more of a 3-point stance. That way it allows you to get more core activation, more support from your hips, a little bit more body awareness, and adjust the position to your body relative to adjusting your body to the bench. That's number 1. 2 more points I want to go over with the bent over dumbbell row, that are the one-arm dumbbell row that people tend to miss out on. First, we're going to look at scapular motion. Most people that I see in the gym, even trainers, focus on the elbow and they forget about the shoulder. So maybe shoulder the wrong way. So as they come back, they're really driving that elbow back. And notice that shoulder's forward. So she's got this kind of thing going on. That puts a lot of pressure on the anterior shoulder, and it also misses the mid-back muscles, which is why a lot of people don't have well-developed mid-back muscles. Not to mention, take a break for a second, not to mention, we all sit a lot and we're keeping those muscles on length. So we can have some postural help from doing these exercises correctly. So instead of having her focus on the elbow and driving like this, what I always tell my clients is once your bicep gets about parallel with your torso, roughly, most of the motion now should happen from the scapula. It's okay if her shoulder goes up a little bit more, but you notice her shoulder is now coming back So now we start to get those mid-back muscles going because that scapular action is happening. So just show them a few movements just like that, the right way. Good, so that's what I'm looking for. Not this, this. So as she comes back, right through there, chest gets big and scapula drives back in, just like that. Perfect. Now, I want to talk about what's happening at this arm. This is where a lot of people miss. They go, oh, I'm focusing if she had a dumbbell in her hand on the right hand, but they're forgetting about what's happening on the left side. A lot of times what I go do is I take my thumb, take my thumb and see if I can grab the scapula on the base hand. And if I can, that means the scapula is jutted back like this, in this case her left side. So it means she's just kind of hanging on her ligaments. So what I would ask Maggie to do there is pretend that somebody's lifting her chest and kind of push her hand into the bench a little bit more. Good, soften your knee up. Good. And act like you're finishing a bench press for me. Good, with this hand. There you go. Now we got it. This is good. I want you guys to see this interaction. So now I have her square her shoulders up a little bit more. So now look, she's much more solid. See, I can't dig my thumb in there. That's where we want this to be. So she's not hanging on her ligaments on the left side and possibly straining those, while she's got a big load in this side that she's doing her rows with. So that's how we coach rows here at Performance U. We make sure that the scapula is working here on the moving side, and we make sure we have a much more stable side on the non-moving side. There are several different dumbbell bent over row variations. Most people just do one. We have a few, so we'll show you now. The first one, probably our favorite, is the freestanding row. No bench, no anchor point, just whatever your legs have. Good back position. Hold your back straight. You can anchor with this hand if you want, and pull the dumbbell in, easy down, pull the dumbbell in, easy down. Well, we like this wrestler type stance with that back heel up, this knee soft, and that takes the tension off the hamstring so we can really get a good arch in the back. Most of the weight is in the front leg, but there is some weight in the back leg. Now, for all our bent over rows, regardless of what version that you're doing, what we like to do is we like to keep the wrist in the center between the ribs and the hip. So if you're using a dumbbell that's fairly average size dumbbell, and I don't mean size weight-wise, I mean like the length of the dumbbell. What we like to coach is we tell the athlete to put the back of the dumbbell, this part of the dumbbell, into their pocket, into their hip pocket. So when they do that, it tends to tell them to bring that, row it in, as opposed to bicepping it up. And then we get that nice 90-degree angle that we're looking for. And of course, we're looking for that shoulder blade to go back. We're looking for them not to stand up when they do it. So instead of just saying, hey, pull it in, because you get all kinds of things, we say take the back of the dumbbell, pull it into your pocket, and touch the front of the dumbbell to your rib. So that part of the dumbbell, rib, that part of the dumbbell to my pocket. Boom. Come on back down. So that's our form cue. We use that across the board for all our bent over rows. And that's our favorite version, the freestanding single arm bent over row. You want to talk about a core exercise? You got this hip working, this shoulder working, and everything in the middle is working. When you use two dumbbells for a bent over row, obviously you can do all the same stuff you can do with a barbell. The benefit of using dumbbells, we use it for two things when we're not going to use the barbell. First, we like to do kind of a 45-degree angle with the dumbbell. So when we're going to row, you can't hold a barbell any other way than this or like this, because it's a barbell. With the dumbbells, we have this freedom of movement. So we're going to hold the dumbbells kind of at this 45-degree angle, if you can see what I'm making with my fingers here, as I pull in. So it's just a little bit more of a natural, comfortable range for some people. Okay, great. Now, here's where it gets good. If you can do all those, no problem. Try this isodynamic row. What do we mean by isodynamic? Iso is short for isometric. Dynamic is really just a term for the concentric, eccentric portion. So here's what we do. You pull them both in. You lock them in. You hold one side in place isometrically as you row with the other side. Hold that side isometrically as you row with the other side. That gives us some anti-rotation happening there, so we get the core aspect happening. The nice thing about that isometric is it gives us an isometric training effect, which we tend to miss, and there's benefits to isometric training. So it incorporates some isometric training into our regular workout. Also, it helps with form. Because if you're a trainer, like we are, you know, or if you're just learning exercise, you know that sometimes just holding yourself in place kind of helps you learn the exercise. So once we get you set up, we say, okay, hold that there, the elbows where we want it, the shoulders where we want it. Now, just focus on getting that one side going, hold that, and then move the other side. So, form improves, body control improves, and it gives you a different training stimulus. So that's the isodynamic dumbbell bent over row, or just the basic dumbbell bent over row. All right, so if you're on one of these machines, these rowing machines that you have, a low row or horizontal row, great machine. There's a certain way we like to set them up to maximize the design of the machine and minimize joint stress. We like to take the seat and put it all the way up high and grab the handle all the way up high. You see this thing is on an arc. It's arcing this way. If you grab it low, you see what it does to my arm. It puts me at this awkward handle, or this awkward angle, excuse me. But if I grab it high and I row in, now I have my nice 90-degree angle. That's what I'm looking for. Whereas, if I take the seat and I put it down lower, and I grab what I want you to grab, look at my wrist. You start to see that angle of the wrist. So, high seat position, high handle is what we found that maximizes the design of the machine with minimal joint stress. All right, seated rows. Now, whether you have a seated row machine or a machine like this, that's kind of like a seated row, regardless, the form is the same. All we're going to talk about here is one thing, pelvic position. A lot of people tend to go crazy with arching their back when they do seated rows. We're going to try to minimize that. We don't want to overstress the low back. So what we want to do is kind of keep this tight and focus just on that thoracic and minimize this kind of deal, where you're leaning back, or we see this arch where the rib cage is going like this, like you're a belly dancer. Lock this in and just focus on your pull. So here we are with our hybrid pulling variations. And all we mean by hybrid is you can't classify it as a vertical or horizontal pull. So I want to start you with one of these angled row machines. If you don't have access to one of these, that's fine. We're going to show you some alternatives. But Hammer Strength makes one where it's kind of a pull like this. But we really love pulling at this 45-degree angle, because what are we always telling ourselves or our clients to do? Shoulder blades back and down, chest up. The nice thing is this is designed for that. So it's not just here, it's somewhere in the middle. We love that type of angle, and we're going to replicate this with several other variations if you don't have one of these machines. So here we've replicated with just a regular cable, if you have a cable column, this 45-degree pull that you can do with those machines. So same thing here. And we like this again because it's that hybrid. It's that arcing movement, really natural. Just watch how your arms swing like this, and then there's that same type of movement. The other nice benefit here is doing pulling exercises from a half kneeling position with a good upright posture. If you're trying to stretch the hip flexors, reverse that sitting position a little bit. Sometimes stretching for 30 seconds or a minute's not going to do it. But if you do several of your rowing exercises while doing a half kneeling position, guess what? If that exercise takes me 45 seconds to finish my 15 reps or whatever, that's a 45-second stretch I just did. If I do 4 sets, that's 4 sets of 45 seconds. And if I do another exercise, so I'm getting my flexibility in there along with my strength. So if you're working out at home and bands are all you have, no problem. Everything you can do with a cable, you can do with a band. So obviously the 45-degree pull that we just showed you with the cables, half kneeling, you can do it with a band. And the nice thing about the bands that offers is they offer this alternate action. So there's a little bit of variety there. And I know this is going to be, you could consider this a horizontal row because of the vector. We like to call it a hybrid because we have this rotary action, thoracic mobility thing that's happening there. So keep in mind that not everything we do in life is always just locked in now. And if you want to call this kind of stuff traditional training and things like this functional training, if those names work for you, fine. But let's think about the concepts here. So all we're talking about is, if we've done a lot of our muscle stuff, sometimes it's nice to do some things for your hustle and work on total body coordination. So just getting in here, not rowing too much where we change the movement, but just getting in here and get that reciprocal action, or here, or here. Multitude of versions with the bands. You can go crazy on that one. I know my man JC Santana's Showed you a wide variety of hundreds of exercises you can do with that. But don't forget, you have single arm movement, you have double arm movement, but you also have, and this is what people forget, is reciprocal action. Just like a boxer, jab, 1, 2, you got a reciprocal action. And you'd be surprised what that does for the scapular movement and thoracic when you start incorporating some of those hybrid, rotary pulling versions in your workout. Here's a hybrid pulling, kind of a power dynamic exercise we like to use. It is more for back. I know when you see a kettlebell, most people think a swing, it's very hip dominant, and some people get very, I would say, overly particular when it comes to kettlebell training and things. We're not involved with any camp, and we don't pledge our allegiance to any sort of kettlebell camp, so we can do whatever the heck we want with the kettlebell. One of the exercises that we've used is not a hip dominant swing, but an upper body dominant swing. We want to emphasize the upper body, mainly the back. So the nice thing is, as the kettlebell is coming through this way, and the momentum's carrying it this way, I get a nice eccentric load of my back muscles that's pulling it down. So instead of being really exploding through my hips, what I'm going to do, remember the focus here is on the back. That's the nature of this DVD. I'm not telling you not to do swings that are hip dominant. I'm just showing you a variation that's more back dominant. So we want to go here, and we want to use the arm to pull it back up and bring it home, pull it back up and bring it back home. Yes, I know this is a light kettlebell. I use heavy kettlebells. We're just using this for the sake of demonstration purposes, and then it's bright orange so you can see it. So instead of me really focusing on getting my hips and really getting that aggressive hip hop, less from the hip, reaching through, pulling from my arm, so I get an eccentric to concentric force transfer, bringing it here, and then letting it come back. Boom, come back. Minimal hip, mostly upper body, and that gives us a nice dynamic, eccentric, concentric pulling action. Notice I'm here, I'm not here, impinging on that shoulder. Another hybrid dynamic pulling exercise that we like, I learned from my friend Bill Sonamaker at Catalyst Fitness. You call it like a diagonal arm swing. So watch what I do here. I split my stance. If the dumbbell's in my right hand, left foot is forward. Now you want to make sure you have a good arch in your back. I'm going to reach the dumbbell across my body, good arch in my back, and then I'm going to explode it back out and stop it here. So I'm stopping it right there, not putting myself in any shoulder danger. So yes, I'm getting something at the front here as well to stop that forward momentum. And I'm going to drive it forward. Now look at that eccentric I get. Glute, shoulder, and then I'm going to pull it back. Drive it forward, pull it back, drive it forward, pull it back. So again, some people might call this functional training versus all the things we've showed you are traditional training. My joke is you want to have the hustle and you want to have the muscle. We do our big rows and our big weights to give us the muscle, and we like to incorporate a few things in like this to give us the hustle. More isolation type exercise. This is the band swimmer. This is a staple exercise that I know they use here at IHP. I learned it from JC Santana, and now I'm going to show it to you. Check it out. Keep my arms straight. Try to keep my back fairly straight too. I want the band to touch me in the shoulders, and I want my thumbs to go by my pocket. Bang, just like this. Come up, bang, just like this. So what a lot of mistakes that I see is people do this. They try to do this ab crunch thing. I'm focusing more on just getting those pulling muscles. So I want to end up just like my deadlift, arms are right here. Same solid back position. What is that really? It's like a dynamic pullover. Pullovers, everybody's seen them from the front. They're great, but check it out from the side. If you have a double cable, you can do it like this. It looks like an iron cross. Pull it right down, bring it back up. If you want to change the angle, walk out further from the cable, and now the tension is more here. When I get closer, you see it's less here, more at the top. So I can vary the force angle depending on where I stand. Now, if you're in the middle of a cable column, you're kind of stuck. We're looking at that 45-degree angle. It's just like an iron cross. Bring it in, pull the hands to the side like you're trying to squeeze your legs together. Stay up nice and tall, and that's the iron cross pull down. Pull downs complement to the side cables. Right in here, you guys have seen these things before. Why we like them is because depending on where I stand in the cable, in or out, I can change the angle. When the cable is at a 90-degree angle to your arm is when the point of maximal loading is at the peak, or where you're getting the most muscle activation. So if you get it down here and it's a 90-degree angle, that's where you're getting the most muscle activation. Up here, 90-degree angle, that's where you're getting the most muscle activation. So you can manipulate those force vectors depending on where you stand. So here, that's where it's hitting me the most. If I come back further, that's where it's hitting me the most. So depending on where you stand, it's important to know that because you can mix it up and get a little bit of variety and hit your muscles from a different angle with each workout. The nice thing about the dumbbell pullover is it gives us a force angle that we can't match with the cable. So right now, here is where I'm getting the most amount of tension. Here, I'm getting the least tension. So with a cable, all the tension was here in the front. With a dumbbell, all the tension is over my head. So again, manipulating those force vectors. And the other nice thing about doing a dumbbell pullover, not spending a lot of time on form because you already know form, this is an old exercise, is it's an anti-extension exercise as well. So make sure that that back doesn't arch up too much and you don't end up tweaking your low back. Use your abdominals to keep things tight as you control the dumbbell overhead. So most exercisers know rear delt flies, and I consider that a back exercise. I mean, we're looking at the back part of the shoulder, so we've included it in this DVD. The question is, how well are you doing them, and what force vectors are you utilizing? And Maggie and I have been talking about helping her prep for figure competitions, and she says that rear delts is something you want to work on. So I said, well, show me how you do rear delt flies, and she showed me some of the things that were the exact reason why we're doing this DVD. So we're going to improve her training here on camera, so we can help improve your training. So can you just demonstrate how you were doing flies? I promise I'm not going to make you look bad or make fun of you or anything. So first thing I noticed is she was way too rounded in her back, right? So we want to set up with rear delt flies just like you would do a Romanian deadlift, solid back. Okay, so go ahead and do a few reps of your flies for me to see 5 or 6. All right, now just pause right there at the bottom. Now this is where when you get tired you rest, right? Because there's no weight here. There's no lever arm. The lever arm is 0. But when she opens up, go ahead and open up and try to hold it at the top position. Right there, you see how she got up and then kind of almost fell. That's where it's the toughest. And if she starts to extend your elbows even more, it makes it even harder because she's lengthening the lever arm. Go ahead, take a break. You can just stand up and rest for a second. So notice she spent the least amount of time, here, and then she was right out of it, where she was getting the maximal muscle contraction. So that's why a lot of people do lots of rear delt flies, but they don't actually get a lot of rear delt development from it. So what I recommend when you're using dumbbells is to go lighter. So we're going to trade the 8s in for 5s. And here's what we're going to focus on. This is one of my favorite ways to really make sure that you're controlling your rear delts and really getting a lot of time under tension. So what I want you to do is go back down like you normally were going to do a rear delt fly. Good back position. And now go up with both arms and hold like you're an airplane flying away. Good. And let's go a little bit longer elbows as well. Right there. Now, hold this one. Don't move it. And just give me rear delt flies on this side for 8 reps. Don't let this arm move. Nice and slow. No swinging. Good. Toss the top for a second. Shoulders level. Good. And then as soon as you give me 8, you're going to hold this one and do this one. We call this isometric dynamic. No. Both arms out now. Yeah. That one holds. Do this one. Good. Soft elbow here. Soft elbow. Good. Keep it up. And notice how much more she's working here. And this is a lighter weight. Good. Keep a good back position for me. Don't swing it up. As she starts to drop that arm, I'll just tell her to bend her elbow a little bit more. Show it's the lever. Good. And then you can take a break. Does that feel a good bit different?
Yes.
A lot tougher. Okay, good. So you can take a break for a second. So, do you have to always do the isometric on one side and the dynamic on the other? No. But when I see, when I get athletes and I always see this kind of action happening, we always go with that because it forces them to hit the position where the muscle's working the most, where they're missing normally. Once you get good at squeezing that position, then you can go back to normal. But we really like that isometric dynamic aspect. Now, I want to cover one other thing here. So we already talked about that when she's using dumbbells, the point that the exercise is the toughest is where? When your arms are out here, right? When they're down here is the easiest. All right, but why you want to mix up force vectors is because you want to hit your muscles from different angles. If I have Meg do, just hold the band just like that for me, a band pull apart. So basically what we're going to do is just be here, soft elbows, and then pull it apart to your chest. If you can't pull it all the way out, just, spread your hands a little wider. Get your chest and come back. Now look at where the tension is. The tension is hardest here And when she opens her arms all the way up, which is where it was hardest on the dumbbells, it's the easiest right there, right? Because there's almost zero lever arm here. But as she starts to bring her arms closer together, right about there is where she's getting the most, which is a completely different position that gives you something different than what the dumbbells gave you. So we like to mix up dumbbell rear delt fly, and you could call this a band rear delt fly or a band pull. So show them a couple reps here. What I really like what Maggie's doing a good job of is she's not caving in like this. She's actually expanding as she comes up. Good. And this might make common sense, but if this becomes easy, all we would do is just have her grab a little bit tighter on the band, increase the tension, and if it's too heavy, she actually expands the band. Good. All right, so you have two options there, and the concept here is to not only focus on the point of maximal loading, but change the point of maximal loading. And you can do that with every exercise, not just rear delt flies. Try these X cable rows. Walk back from the cable, sit your butt back, chest up nice and tall, and pull it as you would do a traditional rear delt row, but the force vector in this is now different. So if I focus on this side, body's facing here, and you don't need the cable just like this. You can do this with a rubber band, any sort of cable column. It's just how you face it. I'm not facing the cable, I'm not away from the cable, I'm 45 degrees from it, and I pull it across my body, keeping a 90-degree angle at your elbow. So the movement looks like this. From a bent over bird's eye position, looks like this. So now the force is coming from that way, as opposed to a dumbbell, it's coming that way. Here's my favorite face pull variation. I learned this from my friend Brett Contreras, the glute guy. Take a band, tie it on something. It's a super band, so it's not only pulling me this way, but it's pulling me this way as well. And then I do my face pull with it. Pull right to my forehead, or I can pull to my neck. So I'm doing two things here. I'm not only pulling the band towards me, I'm opening the band. So I get two force vectors, this and this. Great way to get those rear delts and mid-back muscles at the same time. So that's the band face pull. I'll show you a few more reps. Pull it out and in. You can pull to your nose, pull to your forehead. The goal is don't just pull it and keep this loose. I want to pull it open as I work. I want to show you one of the quick back or pulling assessments that we use here at Performance University with all our clients and athletes. And the assessment is not to try to correct anybody's imbalances or any of that physical therapy stuff. We leave that to the physical therapist. The reason why we use an assessment is to better fit the exercise program to each of our clients. So it's very, very simple here. The first thing I want to do is, when I have a client, so let's say I'm working with Alex, the first thing I want to know is if he can pinch his shoulder blades together. So what I have him do is face away from me, so you don't mind you facing that way from me, Alex. And all I'm going to do is put my hand right here, and I'm just going to say, pinch your shoulder blades together for me. Squeeze my hand. Perfect. Good. So then what I'm asking, you can do that no problem. I'm going to have him say, put your hands straight out in front of you like he was going to do a row. Both hands for me, please. And now keep your arms out and see if you can pinch your shoulder blades together. Perfect. And he can. And that just goes to show me that when we're doing rowing exercises, he's not just going to be all lat and shoulder. He understands and he has kind of the mind and muscle connection in these often weak and lengthened mid-back muscles. Good. Very simple. So if he can't do that, then he's probably not going to be able to do a great job of giving me what I want when we do all these horizontal rows. He's going to be doing a lot of this and not a lot of this. So we might just start him as in warm-ups, just teaching him to grab a set of bands, pull your shoulder blades back and forth, maybe even the push-up position, just getting control of this. And that's even a good homework exercise. And most people pick it up within a day or so, and then we start teaching how to do that within the row. And we don't preset scapulas when we're training clients. We always have them get a nice integration of scapulas coming back and arms coming back. So as I have him row, once he's good at this, I'm not just going to ask him to pull his shoulder blades together and then row. I'm going to ask him, as he's doing the row, to finish to make sure his shoulder blades are together, and then when he comes out, let his shoulder blades actually go apart, and that way we get that full eccentric contraction and concentric action in each row. So that's the first one that we do for an assessment. Second assessment is more just to see how well he can tolerate a bent over, kind of a deadlift position, because deadlifts and bent over rows are very, very simple. Romanian deadlift to be specific. So Alex, what I want you to do is show me if you're going to do a bent over row, just the position. All right? And this is what I'm looking for. This nice back arch right here. A lot of people, good, perfect, so you're good to go. So he's clear. He shows me that good back arch, that nice little dotted curve, but a lot of people, you can take a break for a second, right? So a lot of people are going to give us this. And if you try to coach them out of it and they can do it, fine. They have the awareness and they're good. But let's say you just can't seem to get them here. And some people just can't seem to get this situation. They go like this, but they can't give us that good position. So anybody who can't give us this solid kind of shortstop-like position, we can't do bent over rows with, because even though it might be great for their back, upper back, we're killing their lower back. And they may not even be able to do hand on the bench, bent over rows this way. So what do we do for our horizontal pull? We do standing cable versions, we do standing band versions, or when we're doing our bent over dumbbell rows, we might elevate their hands, where their hand might be up on the dumbbell rack as opposed to way down on the bench, which kind of allows them to get a better position at their back. So there's no one magic exercise for back training. Again, the concept is to adjust the back training exercises to best fit your client, and that's why we use simple assessments like this. Continuing on with our assessments, and these are all really, really basic assessments. If you notice when I had Alex pinch his shoulder blades together, notice he not only pinched his shoulder blades together, but he kind of went into some lumbar extension, something called anterior tilting. He went like this, so it wasn't just movement here, you saw some movement down here. And I'm not going to get into that's dysfunctional or that's good or that's bad, because the physical therapists haven't even figured that stuff out yet. But here's one thing that we're concerned with when it comes to middle back or upper back strengthening. I don't want him every time he does rows to go into this extension so we don't create overuse at the lower back. So I want to teach him to disassociate lumbar extension from a pulling movement. So one of the ways that we'll work with that is we'll split the stance up like this, which kind of neutralizes the pelvis, and we may even have them posterior tilt their pelvis. Don't get too caught up in the whole corrective nature of this. We're not trying to correct any dysfunctions or anything like that. All we're trying to do is set something up with the position of their body so that they get the most out of the exercise. It's basically, we're just trying to prevent them from cheating. That's all we're really trying to do. And this is kind of an assistance, almost like a cheat. So we might get them here and then have them focus on just pulling through the back, and I don't want to see movement here. So the other way to do that is have them sit their butt back, and if they want to bring the lower back in, you'll see them do this, and then they can start to get pulled forward. So when you have somebody sit back and pull, and you tell them keep your butt behind your hips, that kind of prevents that from happening. So just a little coaching tip as far as fitting the exercise to the client and the way the client moves. At Performance Shooter, we don't get too caught up in trying to fix things that are dysfunctional. We leave that to the physical therapist. What we try to do is fit the exercises to the way the client moves. So a killer back protocol in less than a minute. That is, if you can get it done in that time frame. This is the Band Back Blaster. Now, our friends here at IHP have developed a version here. I'm going to show you a version that I use. It's a tweak on theirs, but you can really mix up these exercises. So here's my favorite way to do it. I know at IHP they like to finish with swimmers. I like to start with swimmers because they're the toughest, and that's the ones I see people most of the time lose their form. So we like to put that first. So I'm just going to show you 5 reps. This is a circuit. You're going to go one after the other, all back intensive, pulling intensive. So you're going to go 20 swimmers. I'm just going to do 5, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then I get here, stagger my stance. I'm going to go 20 total. Switch my stance, another 20 total. Little body English is cool. Then I switch my stance again. Go here to more of a lat style. Hit another 20. Switch my stance, another 20. Then I bring my feet back together and I'm going to finish with 20 compound rows. So now, as my back is tired, guess what? I can start to bring in those hips a little bit to help out the lats, kind of spot me. Plus, it's really, really metabolic. Now, can you mix up the order there? You can do anything you want as long as you have a good reason for it. 2, 3, 4 rounds of that, you're getting 100 plus reps. That's all you need in a back workout. Really great if you're short on time. So here's another awesome metabolic protocol that we have. High volume, really get the muscle pump going. Really great way to spice up your workout, add some volume to your pulling workouts. We call this the cable or band row trio. 3 different exercises, 8 to 12 reps per exercise. Again, you can mix up the order, but this is our favorite way to order it up. We start off here, stagger stance, right arm, left leg in front, good posture. We're going to bang out 8 to 12 rows. Right now I'm just going to give you 4. 3, 4. Stance stays the same. I lean over. Now I'm going to do my motorcycle row. 4 good ones. Then I can stay like this if I want to get a little more glute, or I can bring my stance together. I'll keep it like this for now, and I'm going to do a compound row. So I bring in the 2, combine the first 2 movements together, and allow those hips to help out my back as it's fatigued, because I've already done 16 plus repetitions. So you can mix those up. That's the cable row trio. Again, split stance. You can stay here the whole time if you like. We like the split stance. It's a little more cross body. Pull, motorcycle row, compound row. And then of course whatever you're doing right. One of the things to keep in mind from a program design standpoint for your back workouts is if you're not going to split up your back workouts for hypertrophy, you're just looking for overall strength and a good old training effect, what we recommend is utilizing at least 1 vertical pulling movement, and we like to use at least 2 horizontal pulling movements. The reason why we like to use at least 2 or more, or at least do more horizontal pulling oriented exercises than vertical, is because most of us tend to sit too much, and lats aren't as bad here as the mid-back muscles that tend to be on length. And you're not necessarily going to fix somebody's posture, because what we've learned from the physical therapist is posture is habitual, meaning if you sit like this all day, you're probably going to sit like this normally. But it's your ability and strength to get here and hold it when you need to, when you're playing sports or when you're lifting, is what we're worried about there. So we can still improve strength and take a muscle that's being set on length, or a group of muscles, and give them the opposite of what they get all day long. And that's not a bad thing to do. So not only do we mix up, or do we recommend employing vertical and horizontal, a little more horizontal pulling, but also try to mix up the force vectors that you use. So keep in mind that if I'm always pulling from a cable here, I can go low and high, but I can also go across my body. So pulling this way versus pulling this way versus pulling this way just changes things up just enough to keep your muscles stimulated, and variety is definitely one of the keys in staying strong. When we're doing 3-day programs here at Performance U, whether it be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Friday, whatever, we like to follow a split. Lower body on one day, upper body push, upper body pull. Very standard. What we like to do on the upper body pulling day, the back-oriented day, is we like to incorporate deadlifts. Now I know that could be a polarizing topic to some people, because deadlifts is a lower body exercise. Yes, but it's tough to do squats and deadlifts on the same day. So because we like squats and we also like deadlifts, and they're both very important exercises to do, we like to put squats on the lower body day, and we like to put deadlifts on the upper body pulling, i.e. the back day, because we're able to get a little bit more of the big lifts, the compound lifts, in that week, and there is a little bit of that upper body pulling part to deadlifts anyway, so it seems to fit well with that strategy. One of the questions I get most often, like a lot of trainers, is how do I improve my chin-ups? And we showed several chin-up variations and pull-up variations. The answer I normally give is sometimes surprising to people. What I'll tell you is, because it's a relative body strength exercise, which means how strong you are relative to your body weight, the easiest way to get better to chin-ups, lose body fat. So if I put a 20-pound backpack on you and made you do pull-ups, you're not going to do as many pull-ups if you didn't have the 20-pound backpack. Well, if you're 20 pounds over a weight that you think is a good weight for you, there you go. So, and it's much easier to drop weight than it is to get stronger. You can still get strong, but if you're trying to get strong and you clean up that diet a little bit to get your weight down, that's a win-win combination. But there really is no secret formula. Do chin-ups, lat pull-downs work too in the interim if you cannot do chin-ups. But the biggest thing, the biggest hindrance that I've seen with anybody who they're unable to do pull-ups and chin-ups, it's normally that they're just simply not strong enough for the body weight they're carrying around. So what I mean by biceps dominance, what I mean is, if you're somebody that all the rowing exercises and the pulling exercises you do, you tend to get it right in your bicep and sometimes even in that elbow joint. I'm personally a little bit biceps dominant. And you can normally spot someone who's biceps dominant because they normally have these huge, tremendous arms, and they never really do a lot of direct arm work, or they'll say, man, I feel all my back work in my biceps. So the simple way to do that is just look at the elbow angle, and we like to, anytime you're doing rowing, we like to keep this, and mainly I'm focusing on horizontal pulling here, because as soon as you go vertical, you're going to get a lot of bicep in there anyway. So let's focus on more of the horizontal rowing. As long as you keep that elbow at 90 degrees, and you never let the wrist go inside that elbow, so when you start seeing stuff like this, or when you're doing better row stuff like this, then you're starting to bring in that bicep. So we like, basically what I'm getting at here is whenever we have somebody who's biceps dominant, we're really going to focus on the wide grip variations. Anything that has you out here like this, so at the end of the row, we see this angle. Or when we're doing one-arm rows, we're going to really focus on a 90-degree angle at the elbow. As soon as you see that wrist creeping in, or as soon as you start doing close grip stuff, you're going to really advantage that bicep, and they're already going to go to where they're strong. Okay, back training for size versus back training for strength. Now obviously there's a repetition range component there, which is pretty obvious if you're going for size gains. Muscle hypertrophy, getting bigger, you're looking for that 3 to 5 sets, 8 to 12, 8 to 15 reps, higher volume type work. If you're looking for more strength, which is motor unit recruitment, how to tell your brain how to bring more muscle into the game, then you're looking at a little heavier weight, lower rep range, 5 to 6 sets, anywhere from 4 to 6 reps. Those are very, very general. Now, let's talk about momentum for a second. If we're training for hypertrophy, then we're going to take momentum out of the equation. We want to get more time under tension, so we don't want to see that jolting movement. So a lot of times you see people when they're rowing and they kind of bounce at the top, or that rear delt fly and they bounce at the top. We don't want any momentum at all, because remember, hypertrophy training is not weightlifting, otherwise known as bodybuilding. You're not trying to impress people with the weights you're lifting, you're trying to impress people with what you get from the weights that you lift, which is the size. And when it comes to strength, we're not necessarily all about momentum, but what we want you to do, because you're heavier, is we want you to explode into the weight, which means row it as fast as you can, and if the weight's heavy enough, it's not going to move that fast if I'm your trainer watching you, but in your head, the intent is fast, and then you're going to give me a controlled eccentric on the way down. So regardless of whether we're training for hypertrophy or strength, the eccentric is going to be a controlled eccentric, 2, 3, 4 seconds. But it's what we do with the concentric that makes the difference. Again, for strength, we're looking for exploding into the weight. Weight is a little bit heavier. For size, to stimulate a little more hypertrophy, we're going to try to minimize. We're still going to pull the weight, pull into the weight. We're not going to purposely do a slow concentric. But what we're going to do is minimize or eliminate, is the better way to do it, momentum. Now, core training is a big word in fitness, a big buzzword. Everybody wants to have a strong core. But what a lot of people don't realize is that your core is everything, or all the muscles that surround your spine. If you took off your arms and legs, what would be left is technically your core. It leaves your entire mid-back and also your lats. So not too many people would think of lat training or lat pull-downs or chin-ups or mid-back rows as core work. Here at Performance University, we absolutely do, because mid-back is part of your core, lats are part of your core. Something more specific is your lats are the only muscle in your body that connect your hip all the way to your shoulder. So that's a pretty important muscle, and they connect with your glutes. If you look at the direction of the lat fibers and the direction of the glute fibers, they kind of meet through this thoracolumbar fascia. That's the diamond. According to Porterfield and DeRosa, strong lats work with the glutes to squeeze on the lumbar spine and create stability. So there's a lot more to doing back strengthening exercises than actually just trying to get big or just trying to get strong. There's definitely a performance aspect to that as well. I can't thank these guys enough for helping me out. I couldn't have done it without them. So Maggie, I appreciate it. We had fun. Did you have fun doing this?
I did. Great time.
Now everybody's got all your secrets. What do you got to find some new secrets now, right?
I'll get some new ones.
All right, cool. Alex, I appreciate it, my man. You got any final words for anybody out there?
I'm good. It's nice to work with you. Nice to work with the best.
All right, well, that's why I have these guys in here, because they keep me humble, they're humble, and you see this stuff works because you got real people and real results. Now I got to get back in the gym because I got to catch up to these two.